On today's show, I've got Living Darian, who's going to talk about his Live for Love tour and album, and it's got a lot of really good music on that. And hopefully we're going to go over some inside scoop about the music scene in Cincinnati, Ohio as well. So welcome to the show, Darian.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, you bet. So what do you prefer? I know your name is Darian, but you go by Living Darian. What's the story behind your name there, and which do you prefer people call you?
Well, I am Darian, and I am Living Darian. But my problem was I went through a lot of names when I was young, stage names, and I was just like, I'm going to just use my real name. But I'm so, we as people are more than our names, as far as I believe, a lot more. And so I'm called Living Darian, but, after this life, I'm sure maybe I'll be called something different. So in this life, I'm Living Darian. And so that's what I'm doing with my music and in my life as a father, as a husband. That's what I'm doing every day. So I'm Living Darian. That's who I am.
Well, it's very memorable. It's very empowering because it definitely sounds like you're embracing life, seizing the day. But it also ties in with the title, Live for Love, which I believe that's the name of both your tour and your album.
Correct. Yeah, and it wasn't really thought out or designed that way, but it just kind of happens to be, since my purpose is really life itself. I want to be able to make somebody's life a little bit better, because I think in turn that's going to enrich my own life and make my quality of life better. And it's just that's kind of just what I'm doing on a daily basis, is living for love. That's basically what I'm raising my children's with, that premise. And so why not? I believe that the realest story is always going to be the most compelling.
Well, you do have a compelling story, and I've been listening to your music, reading your website, and I'm always trying to narrow down people's genres, because nowadays people have so many influences. They're not just you can't put everyone in a box. But it sounds like you're primarily hip hop, but you also have a lot of blues and rock influences in your music.
Well, thank you. I do. I really like all music. Like I can listen to country, I can listen to blues, I can listen. I mean, you name it. I'm a fan of some alternative bands, rock bands. Actually, my show in Cincinnati, I had the opportunity to work with a couple. We're kind of all grouped as pop, but there's some kind of folk rock, some punk rock or ska, as well as some Christian pop rock bands that were on the bill. So I really enjoy the eclectic factor of music. And
sure. Well, what really strikes me about the music I've been listening to is your lyrics. It sounds like you really draw from personal experience, and it sounds like you've made all your songs very personal to you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was the goal in doing that. I'm sorry. I always like to say that a New Edition and Michael Jackson made me want to perform for a bunch of people, and Otis Redding and James Ingram, they wanted me to sing, made me want to sing from the soul, but Tupac actually had a great influence on me, wanting to say something to impact the world, because he actually impacted me a whole lot through his words, and I recognized the power of words through him. So I've kind of made every song so important to me that, you know, I have to say something to inspire at least somebody. So I mean, that's my goal. Every
Sure.
song that I write, that's my goal.
And you packed a lot into this album. I mean, nowadays a lot of people maybe, you know, 8, even 10 tracks would be a lot for an album now, but what do you have on there, about 18? I mean, you did a lot. You packed a lot onto this.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I got 18 on there. I think it was cut down from about 25. To actually, a lot of songs that some people like, they didn't really fit in with the common concept of the album. Like, for example, there's a song on Pandora. It was actually like one of my first songs that really got recognized, called I See Ya. But that was actually one of the songs that I reluctantly cut from the album. But it just wasn't a good match for the rest of the project. So.
Well, one thing you know, about doing an album like this, you know, it really tells a story. And I was curious, is this all recent material that you've written, or is this like stuff you've been saving for a while? I mean, what's your process? Do you say, hey, I'm going to go in the studio and then write? What's the order you do everything in?
Well, actually, I think this album, I'm talking about some of the same stuff that I've talked about before, but I have such a unique perspective in comparison to, just say, 10 years ago. My perspective on the whole outlook of the same problems was negative. Obviously, there's 2 ways you can look at things. You know, you can choose to see the good, or you can choose to see the bad. And I think now I'm choosing to see the good, and so it's reflecting in my music. So, yeah, all of these are fairly recent. The album itself took 3 years to complete, so there's really no songs that are older than 3 years. Now, some of the ideas actually for the songs and concepts may have been a little further back, but they were all recorded within this time frame.
And what are your favorite songs on there? Like, someone who's going to, you know, go online, go to your website, go to Bandcamp to take a listen, what songs would you like them to listen to first?
I would definitely love them to listen to one song. That, especially with what's going on in the world right now, to me, that's the most important song. One song, and there's a bunch of really deeply personal songs on there, such as.
So when you say one song, I mean that's the title. One song, We Are One.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, because that's when you also have a music video too, on YouTube. Isn't that right? Cool.
Yes, sir. It is. And I intentionally did not want to be in that video because the subject matter to me is way more important than showing one person, because the point of the song is that we are one, no matter really what we look like. So I was hoping they'd get the message that I don't really need to be in it because we're all one. But I'd love people to check out Carry On, which is a really personal song for me, and Broken Wings as well, which is featuring my daughter, who's coming out with her own album. I think within the year, I think it should happen. Her name's Nevaeh Sky, so look out for her.
Oh my goodness, that's so sweet. So it sounds like you're very nurturing and very, dedicated to your kids. I mean, how important is that to pass on your music to them and to be able to work with them?
So to me, it's really everything. I keep going back to the purpose. I believe that I was given, the gift of music to help spread joy and love and knowledge and whatever wisdom that I can share. Actually, that's really the purpose of me even making music. I came back. I quit music for 5 years because I was just running my business, and it wasn't that I didn't want to do it anymore. I just found something else to do. Something made me miss it, and I came back, and I wanted to be able to give independent artists a way to be able to release their music and be heard without having to feel like it was such a long shot to actually get people to hear your music and be able to sell your music. So that was really why I started making music again, because my record company needed a success story, and I was like, well, I'll just be my own success story. Let's see how that goes. So, that
really ties in, I think, with what I've read on your website, because you're very open, and I think that's one thing that makes people connect to artists when they share a lot of themselves. And I think the one thing that really struck me, and if you don't mind, I want to read just a little section here. This, I think, what I really felt connected. You said, after wasting a lot of time on street dreams, drugs, money, Darian finally lives life like it's important to him. Every day is meaningful and productive. Those are some pretty powerful statements.
Yeah, I remember that time in my life when the biggest change occurred within myself, and it was around the time that I met my wife and I had my daughter, and I actually had something to live for, and that was the first time that I actually felt love. Was when my daughter was born. Before that, I can't really say with any certainty that I ever loved anybody. I had a really troubled childhood. My mother died when I was 4, and I didn't know my father until I was 33. So I grew up in the system, and I was pretty institutionalized and kind of hardened. So, but when I just took the feeling that I had for my daughter, and I started treating the whole rest of the world the same way, because I was truly happy. I had purpose in my life, so it changed me profoundly, and it's one of the reasons I want to give back, because I know I'm really fortunate not only to be in the position I am, but to be just alive. It's really a blessing.
Both of your parents have a background in music. What's kind of interesting is, even though you haven't always, been physically, around them, do you feel like you somehow inherited their musical talent, even though you've not always been, in the same room with them?
Oh yeah. Actually, yeah, I kind of could play any instrument growing up. I mean, I wasn't, the greatest pianist ever, but I mean, I could play a song just, winging it or freestyling. And the guitar was even more prevalent. And when I picked up the guitar in my early 20s and really started playing it a bunch, I thought to myself, I wonder if my father played guitar. And sure enough, when I met him, he actually played with James Brown. His best friend was Catfish Collins, Bootsy's older brother, and my father was the one that actually put the guitar in Bootsy Collins' hand. But he played with a lot of people, Otis Williams. He toured with the United States military, playing all around the world for the soldiers. But yeah, that was one of the first things he said when I met him. He was like, "You come from a long line of musicians." I said that explains so much, because I've gone broke, almost killed myself repeatedly trying to make it in the music industry. It was just because I couldn't put the music down. It's part of me.
Well, those are some amazing stories. I mean, the one who put the guitar in Bootsy Collins' hand, I mean, that's great. I mean, when you were together with your dad after all these years, were there a lot of stories like this? I mean, was music the thing that really bonded you to him after all these years?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And ironically, my best friend, whose name Mike, is Bootsy's nephew. And at the time when I met him, neither one of us really knew our parents, our biological parents. And but we were best friends through the years, over countless of years, and had no idea that our parents and uncles knew each other. And they were all best friends too. And we're the next generation down, and the same things happen. So, I mean, the synchronicity and the irony is astounding.
So when you talk to your dad, you don't want to dwell on the past, but at the same time, it's like, wow, we're making up for lost time now. What's the most urgent thing, like when you're with him and talking music, saying, hey, let's not waste time anymore? How do you like to spend that time with him now?
Oh, I just this past weekend I went out to watch him play. He's got this band going. Him, another guy he's played with for years and years, named Mark. No, not Mario. I forgot his name. He plays saxophone. And then another guy who played. He's on every one of Bootsy's albums. His name's John Davis. And then there's the drummer who's only 9 years old, the most incredible drummer I've ever seen in my life, and he's 9. But yeah, he's playing, and he's trying to get me to do shows with him, and he said, "You can do some of the raps with it." We talk about music like we've known each other forever, really. Well,
it's interesting when you get a connection like that, say, Bootsy Collins, or, what people call old school, or the generation before. You're doing a little more modern hip-hop, but what's it like to connect with the old school? I mean, do you get inspiration from that, from, when, mentioned James Brown, with Bootsy Collins also, Parliament, Funkadelic? Do you feel a connection with that era?
I do, and I hate to say this, funk was actually, when I'm growing up, that was kind of one of my least favorite genres of music. I mean, there's really good funk songs. I don't want to sell it short, but it's I'm really a lot more partial to the blues than I am the funk. But oh yeah, I mean, I'm inspired. I love music. It doesn't really matter what you're playing. I mean, I admire the ability to feel the music and not necessarily feel it, but make it be felt through your own feelings. I'm not. Now,
does Cincinnati?
I'm not one that,
oh, sure. Does Cincinnati have its own special brand of blues? I mean, what's the prominent, players in the Cincinnati scene, and especially the blues players?
Now, ironically, I mean, as far as like a major influence in the music industry, Cincinnati really has no music scene as far as that's concerned, and that's really why I wanted to come back and start up New King Records to bring music, a major music, back to Cincinnati. That's really my ultimate goal, is to bring the music back. I mean, there's a lot of people that play out. There's clubs that want some bands. There's a desire for people to be entertained with live music. But I mean, I don't want to sound too negative about Cincinnati, but for an example, if I'm trying to get my song, like one song, for example, one song's been on FM terrestrial radio in America in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Chicago, New York, Miami, but and I mean 50 or so other cities, but never in Cincinnati. Cincinnati,
Wow.
there's not really a local support system for major music in Cincinnati, but hopefully.
So is it kind of like the old saying that it's easier to become known outside your own hometown than it is within your hometown?
Definitely, and in Cincinnati it is.
So where are some pockets where they've really caught on to your music? Are there certain cities and areas that you notice a little more airplay than others?
Yes, Houston. I don't know. Maybe the one song with, I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating, but maybe the Hispanic culture is kind of latched on. But Houston is a big one. That's there's I get a bunch of plays in L.A., the Northwest of Seattle. There's a bunch in Canada, and Brazil is probably my biggest fan base, believe it or not. Brazil and India.
Interesting.
Are probably the biggest fan base. But Chicago. But there's only one or two. Like when I study the stats, there's only a pocket of a few that check out Living Darian in Cincinnati.
Sure. Well, we're going to wrap up in a little bit, but before we do, I want to make sure that people know where to find you online. So where should people go to, read about you, hear your music, buy your music, watch your videos? Where should we direct them?
I would think livingdarian.com would be the best hub for it all. There's links to pretty much anything you want to do on livingdarian.com, and that's Darian.
Excellent. And I also noticed links to Bandcamp where they can sample all the songs from the Live for Love album.
Correct. And again, that link is directly on livingdarian.com. So when you go to livingdarian.com and scroll down and you push play, that actually will play from Bandcamp. I mean, it is literally everywhere. I have a distribution deal through Indie Boom and Empire. Those two companies combined literally have my records in every online store you can possibly think of. I've never even heard of some of them, but so you really shouldn't have any problem finding it. You can Google Living Darian, and there's be a bunch of links there. So if you like Pandora, you like iHeartRadio, or Spotify, whatever your preference, you should be able to add it right on in and do your playlist. So,
well, I encourage people to do that, and of course to buy the album, because there's such a variety, and I think it's something that you can listen to repeatedly and get something new out of every time. But what I want to wrap up with is, so where has the Live for Love tour taken you? Where is it taking you to next? Are people going to be able to see you on the road for the rest of the year? I
think we're pretty much wrapped up our tour. We've done Nashville, Cleveland, of course Cincinnati. We stopped in Munsterville. There's been a bunch. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for those.
That's good. It sounds like it sounds like you hit some great places. I mean, Nashville. Everyone always raves about going to Nashville, so I bet that was pretty cool.
Yeah, Nashville. That was the first time I've been to Nashville. And being that it's a music city, I mean, I'm just in awe of how much music is in that city, and awe and a little envious, I guess.
Right. Well, I bet you found some really good blues down there.
Oh yeah. I got the good. I mean, even just going out to eat, you get live music. Even just for lunch, like the sun doesn't have to be down. It doesn't have to be a bar. Just a restaurant. There'll be somebody playing a guitar in a corner. Nashville's a cool place.
Nice. Well, last question. We got about 60 seconds. So along the tour line, who would be your favorite person or band to open for on a tour? You're going to dream big.
Good question. I'm very partial. I love Neo. I love Bruno Mars. Those are icons to me. I'd love to be at the level they're at, and I'd love to even open up. I think we may even share. Their fans may even like a couple of my songs. Who knows? So I think that would be awesome to open up for them.
Well, my thought is if you put it out there, you say it, you're one step closer to making that come true. So I'm going to keep watching you, Darian, and I encourage people to check out your website, listen to your music, and I think you're going to put Cincinnati on the music map. How's that?
Well, thank you. I appreciate you for having me, and I look forward to where the future goes.